Welcome back to Pilgrim Lanes for the second and concluding string in the Pro Series playoff semifinal matches. On lanes 5 and 6 you see Mike Morgan, who's taking on Craig Holbrook, and on lanes 7 and 8 Chris Boisvert is taking on Shawn Morrison. After the first string of each match, Mike Morgan has a 13-pin lead over Craig, with a 127 to Craig's 114, and Chris Boisvert leads Shawn Morrison by 1 pin, 127 to 126. Mike Morgan starts off with an 8 box, and Chris Boisvert is looking at a 2-5 combination for a spare. And he's got it. And there's a nice spare by Mike Morgan. Let's take a look at it. 3, 5, 10. And in slow motion he hits it perfectly. So that's a spare in the second frame. And let's see what Chris Boisvert can do on his spare in the first box. Chris drops 9. Maybe an 8-pin. Piece of wood in front of the 8. It's a little hard to tell. Doesn't really look great, but I'm not sure if it might be far enough back that he can just hit it and cover the 8. And in any case, he goes nice and high and he pushes it right back. So that brings up Shawn Morrison, and Craig Holbrook is up against Mike Morgan on lane 6. And there's a nice shot by Craig Holbrook to convert the big 5 over on lane 6. He kind of was a little bit full on the 2-pin, but he got some nice sidewall action with a spare. He's just only going to get 4 on it, though. That's not really what he needs. Trying to make up a deficit. Wow, there's a couple of nice shots. A strike by Shawn Morrison and a spare. Let's look at them both in slow motion. Strike by Shawn, and then Craig Holbrook picks up that 4 drop for a spare. So, a couple of terrific shots right there. So that's going to tighten up both of the matches a little bit. Chris Boisvert working on the spare in the second box. And in the third, he adds a strike. Let's take another look at that. You will see that it's kind of a medium mixer hit, but he gets the head pin to come off the sidewall and take out the 4-5. Meanwhile, Mike Morgan drops 9 on his spare, but well, tough piece of wood there in front of the 4-pin, and as you can see, he wasn't able to push it back. Mike takes a 10 in the third box. And Chris Boisvert on lane 7 is going to fill in that strike, see if he can really put a little distance between himself and Shawn Morrison. And wow, look at that. That was almost exactly the same hit that he just had in the other box that carried a strike for him, but he just took out the 1, 2, 3, and 6. So that's really a tough break there. Chris threw a nice ball and was not rewarded. And it's just going to be a 5 fill on the strike. Things can turn around quickly in candle pins. So it's a 7 box for Chris Boisvert and a 10 for Mike Morgan. Shawn Morrison, who we mentioned earlier is the reigning main state all events champion, having recently won that title. He drops 8 on the first ball and does not get the spare. He puts a 9 on the strike. Meanwhile, Craig Holbrook with his 3rd consecutive spare. So Shawn Morrison is trailing by 19 pins right now, but I say that and he throws a strike immediately. Let's take another look at that. This one was pretty fast. High flush in the 1-2 pocket, and 10 pins hit the deck pretty quickly. So that's going to close it up again. Meanwhile, Craig Holbrook with just a 3 fill on the spare, but he gives it a good try over there on lane 5, trying to make that spread eagle plus the 9 pin. And he records a 9 box, so he's got 55 after 4. And wow, that's a backdoor strike for Chris Boisvert. Let's see how it looks in slow motion. He goes by the head pin on the left, but generates a lot of action, and the wood mixes around and finally takes out the head pin. As I started to say, Craig Holbrook has 55 to Mike Morgan's 47, so that cuts the 13 pin lead to only 5. But then Mike throws a strike on top of that, so let's take another look at this strike by Mike Morgan. Very similar to the one by Chris Boisvert. It's or the one by Shawn Morrison, not the backdoor strike by Chris Boisvert. And Chris, well, the breaks even out, don't they? After getting kind of a fortunate backdoor strike, he throws a good ball and hits the head pin, but ends up with a 3-1 split. 2, 4, 6, 7, and a piece of wood that might conceivably help him behind the 2 pin, but he just comes right in solid on the 2, so it's going to be a 7 fill, and that gives him 78 after 5. And Chris Boisvert will take a 9, 87 through 6. So Shawn Morrison is working on that strike that he had in the 4th frame, and he throws a solid 1-2 pocket hit, almost throwing a double. Gives a 6 pin, couple of pieces of wood down there that he's going to look at a little bit more closely just to make sure they're not dangerous. And he's got it. So that's a spare in the 5th. Craig Holbrook also with a spare in the 5th. And wow, that's another solid hit in the pocket. That could easily have been a triple strike for Shawn Morrison, those last 2 shots. But it's only a 9 drop, and that cuts Chris Boisvert's lead to 4. It's 3 pins in this string plus the 1 he had coming in, and there's another spare by Shawn Morrison. So that gives him a chance to take the lead when he comes back up. Meanwhile, Craig Holbrook on lane 5 is going to be open in the 6th. He will make it a 10. He's got 82 to 76, so he's down by only 6 pins now. Boy, good bowling by all 4 of these guys. It seems like whenever one bowler makes a flurry, the other one comes back with an answer, and that's true in both matches. Mike Morgan with, it's going to be 9, gets the 3-6 to go back for him, and he's got the 7 pin. Chris Boisvert with a spare, converting that 3 pin. So whoever wins these two matches, it's gonna set up a good final because all four of these guys are really bowling well, as befits the finals of a Pro Series playoff tournament. These are the best of the best. The top 24 bowlers on this year's Tour Pro Series in the point standings qualified for this playoff tournament. And these are the four that are left: Chris Boisvert, Shawn Morrison, Mike Morgan, and Craig Holbrook. And there's another spare by Chris Boisvert in the 8th frame. So that's really going to put some pressure on Shawn Morrison, who, as I mentioned, has a opportunity to take the lead here. And he drops 7, so he does take the lead, temporarily at least, by 4 pins. Shawn has a 3, 6, 10... with a piece of wood that's at an angle. It's pretty thin, so I'm not sure if he can push that one back. And he just goes a little bit thin on the wood. He needed to go higher than that, so he didn't carry the 10 pin. And it'll be 10 bucks for Shawn. Meanwhile, Craig Holbrook has got a spare over there in his match, matching the one by Mike Morgan. And Shawn Morrison drops 9 in the 8th, and it's badly needed because he's down by 4, having had a 10 box against the spare 8. And Craig Holbrook has a big 5 over on lane 5. Looks like he's got a piece of wood that might help him. And there is a great shot right there. Super shot right there. He hit pretty solid on the 3 pin, and that wood went over and took out the 4-7, while the right side was being cleaned out. So that's going to actually give him a chance to take the lead. He'll be down. Craig is down by 7 minus whatever he gets on his first ball when he comes up in the 9th frame. And that's a spare by Shawn Morrison. So both of these matches are both going right down to the wire. Good ball by Mike Morgan, but a tough break there. He's got the 4-5-7 piece of wood in front of the 4-7, but it's going to be tough to make a spare out of that. And Chris Boisvert is a little disappointed with his first ball in the 9th, filling the spare in the 8th with just 4. And wow, just came in pretty close to where he wanted to be on that shot, but a little bit too full on the head pin. Ooh, and that's going to be a 6 box for Chris Boisvert. So that... well, let's see. He really could use a mark in the 10th. Wow, that's a great shot by Mike Morgan over on lane 5. And that's a badly needed mark for him too, because Craig Holbrook is working on a spare and has a chance to take the lead. Chris Boisvert with 8. He's got the 3 and 6. And as you can see, Mike Morgan fills his spare with a 5 for a 125 game, meaning that Craig Holbrook needs a 138 to tie. And Chris Boisvert with an important spare in the 10th, and he wants to put a big fill on it. Craig Holbrook with 8. That gives him a 1-pin lead over Mike Morgan. And there is a strike by Chris Boisvert on that fill. Now you take a look at this on replay. He actually, that's a skip lob. That's not a lob. It bounces off the foul line and goes right into the 1-3 pocket, and headpin comes off the sidewall and takes out the 5-pin. So that's a huge strike right there. And meanwhile, wow, and a strike by Shawn Morrison. He's got the answer once again. And let's have a look at the replay. That's just a hammer. So Shawn needs, right now, he needs a total of, well, I don't want to get this wrong. He needs, oh dear. Anyhow, so now he needs, with just the 5 fill, he needs 4 to tie, 5 to win on this last ball. He's got a 9 to tie, 10 to win. Oh my, that was really a bad break there. He can't believe it, and neither can I, really. Take a look at this on replay. This is a good shot. It's very close to where he wanted to put it, but the 2-pin just goes right between the 4 and the 8. So that's a really tough break for Shawn Morrison. So Craig Holbrook defeats Mike Morgan, and Chris Boisvert just edges Shawn Morrison. So Craig will face Chris in the finals.